All right, drummers, Garey Williams back. Today we're going to talk about the 5-stroke roll using the traditional grip. As I mentioned in my previous videos, it's very important to start off finding the balance point. With the Vic First sticks, it's usually where the flag. You want to position that across the web of your palm right here, the fleshy part between your thumb and index finger. You can see that my practice pad is angled, once again favoring the angle of the left stick as the stick is placed on top of the hand versus the matched grip where the stick is below the hand. If the hands are at the same elevation, then the left stick being on top of the hand is going to have a slightly more angle to it. So you want to accommodate that angle with the surface that you're playing, in this case the pad. So that's why you see these pictures of some of the old jazz drummers having the angled snare drum. We want to make sure that the stick is parallel to the surface to get the greatest amount of free rebounding strokes. So we just pick up the stick and we drop it. Now you can see it bounce around a little bit. If I pick it up with this hand, it'll probably stay steady. Now what I'm trying to do is find the angle of the pad that marries the stick. You can see it wants to come downhill. So if I bring the pad around, I'm looking for a position of the stick and the pad to where when I drop the stick, it pretty much like a ball would bounce straight up and down and not want to slide down the hill. So what I do at this point is that I bring my ring finger underneath, extend my middle finger. I can curve the index finger around and place the thumb on the side. Now this is with my hand in more of a closed position at this point in time. But when I'm starting the roll, I'm playing very slowly. So I'm going to be using a lot more wrist with a very loose, open-handed type of grip. Same thing over here. I'm not even going to use my index finger. I'm just going to be using the thumb and the web of my palm. So this is going to start out nice and slow with that kind of movement. Now, if I want it to be soft to loud, then I have to start with lower strokes to produce a softer volume level. Now, with the 5-stroke roll, it's a mixture of double strokes and singles, as well as right hand lead to left hand lead, and as well as soft to loud. So there are 3 things with this rudiment that make it a little bit more challenging than many of the other rudiments. So we're going to start off with double, double, single, double, double, single. 2, 4, 5, 2, 4, 5. I'll speed it up. So you can see I'm using a whipping type of stroke movement to produce the loud notes. I'm a firm believer in using a tap stroke type of movement for soft volume, where I use just my wrists. And if I want more volume, then I reach up and use a wrist-arm combination movement. This is a whip stroke, which produces naturally more sound and more volume, rather than using a velocity stroke like that. There's nothing wrong with that, but you can hear the difference is a little bit more of an attack versus more of a drop, weighty sound. Part of it is that holding the stick loose enough to where you get that tone versus like that. So that's what I'm trying to avoid. I want the sound to be very resonant at all times. Now, as I sped up, I start to close up my hand. Now, I've talked a little bit about the double stroke roll in some of my previous videos. Especially I did the match grip one and then recently did the double stroke roll with the traditional grip. So there's more detailed information on how you're going to manipulate the fingers to help control and increase the speed of the double. So whatever you do with the double stroke roll in the double stroke roll itself, you're going to use the same methods with the double stroke roll that's contained within the 5-stroke. Now, I like to think of the 5-stroke as really 3 strokes and 5 notes. I always like to bounce the stick. So if you think of playing triplets with perhaps an accent on the last note of the triplet, 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 and then you bounce the unaccented notes. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, triplet. That's one way of playing it, and that's the way I like to play it. You can break it up. That's kind of more of an even rhythm versus the odd or triplet rhythm. It's also good to separate. So experiment with pulling one hand out so you can learn what each hand is doing separate from just putting the whole thing together. And if you work on each hand individually, slow, fast to slow, with these movements to produce the dynamic contrast in a very natural way, getting a good sound, and then you put the two hands together, there'll be a greater intelligence with how this whole thing is supposed to sound when you put both hands together and increase the speed. So hopefully this has been beneficial to you. I'll be back with some more rudiments down the road. Thanks very much. Good luck to you. Bye-bye.